Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're doing our August 2022 library update. This is where we talk about all of the games, the expansions, upgrades, and pre-orders for the SideGame Library. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. Let's talk about all the games that entered the library during the month of August 2022. First off, we're going to start with Cat in the Box Deluxe Edition. This is a trick-taking game where as soon as you play your card, that's when you determine what the color of it's going to be. Very interesting, very strange to wrap your head around, but I really like this game at higher player counts. I feel there's a lot of different avenues to play when you're actually playing in those higher player counts, as opposed to the smaller card set with that lower player count. So I do recommend this one as a very interesting take on trick-taking, and it's something that you'll need to wrap your head around. Really cool. Next up is Living Forest. This is a Spiel des Jahres nomination, which is a deck-building push-your-luck game. You're going to be flipping cards on the top of your deck, trying to accumulate symbols to take strong actions. My favorite thing about this game is that there are various win conditions that you can go down, and there's an action in the game where you can actually collect these tokens, which will reduce your own personal number to actually reach that win condition. I think it's a great little touch here, and even if you bust in this game, you're still taking strong actions because you've revealed more cards, which means the actions you do take are going to be very strong. So I like that if you don't bust, you get to take 2 actions, but if you do bust, you take 1, but it's still a very strong action. There's some great stuff going on in this game. Next up is Volfyirion. This is a very simple deck building game that features a lot of cool things. Primarily Volfyirion himself, a giant dragon who you can control. You can send them to destroy your opponent's cities, or you can even destroy Volfyirion to claim an extra city. You're trying to knock out all of your opponent's cities, and you do this by trying to learn from these different schools of magic, getting these artifact cards from the dragon's hoard. There's a lot of neat things here, and the expansions that come with it are very easy to integrate. And next up is Mythic Mischief. This is an abstract game that has a wonderful theme of all of these mischievous little school creatures. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's that scene from Monsters University. You're trying to evade the Tome Keeper who works in the library and trying to push all of your opponents into the Tome Keeper's way. Now, this is one that I really like playing as a solo game. It's a 7 for me as a solo, but I'm not a big fan of it in the multiplayer setting. It is very much a perfect information game. You're going to be spending a lot of time on your turns finding that perfect move, and I think that's really cool in the solo setting. You have some randomness with the detention cards, but in that multiplayer setting, it's one that takes a long time. You're sitting there calculating that perfect move. So it's not one that I think I'm going to play. And I have played it with the team variant, with the one-on-one, and I think this is one that I'm going to play solo primarily, but I can see others liking, particularly if they enjoy a good abstract with a great theme. So that is Mythic Mischief. Next up is Riverside. This is a very simple roll and write game where you're going to be rolling up some dice and using the dice to fill up these different tickets. So you're trying to get tickets for an attraction here. If you use the lower dice, then you are going to be able to add them potentially to this green one here. And if you use the higher dice, you can still add it to the green one, but you're going to take a penalty if you only have a certain amount of times you can use those higher dice. So you're trying to figure out when's the best time to use those dice that are on the top here, and then also which of the locations that you want to visit. So you have this boat that's actually going to be traveling on this little river track at the top here, and based on where it ends, that's going to determine where you can actually cash in the points that you've been writing on your sheet. There's some cool decisions here. I like that there are multiple modes to the game, and there's a bunch of little bonuses that are very powerful when you activate them, which I think is necessary for a roll and write style game. Next up is So You've Been Eaten. This one here is a abstract game where you have 2 very asymmetric roles that you're being. You are either a miner who is after all these gems, or you are a creature who is actually eaten the miner. And so you're playing as the creature's stomach, and you're deciding which of the pieces are going to go down the stomach, and the miner is going to try to weave through it and not be digested. So I really enjoy playing this game solo as the miner. I think it's very fun to go and collect the pieces, but this is one that has not been played in the 2-player setting. So I'm curious to see how that plays and see if the stomach is also super fun to play in that 2-player capacity. So far, I'm not a big fan of playing the stomach as a solo player, unfortunately. And next up, we have the Lord of of the Rings exit games. Just very excited to try this one. Have not played it yet, but this is one that I am very thrilled to play. I really like the exit games, and I hope the Lord of the Rings theme works very well for it. And next up is Savannah Park. This is actually a very big surprise here. A very simple game that works best in multiplayer setting. It adds this great bit of tension as you're going to be moving these pieces on this board. Every time someone takes a turn, they're going to pick a tile, and everybody at the table finds that tile on their board. It's going to be different because the setup is random, and then you'll be moving it around into a different area trying to get scoring. It uses a king domino method of scoring where you count the number of animals times the number of watering holes in the area, so you're trying to combo it because there are certain watering holes that have multiple animals on them. So your map is going to be all varied, and you've got some other stuff that you have to worry about too. But some great decisions because you're not sure when that timing is going to happen, so you're constantly planning for the future and planning for the worst case scenario. Good stuff in Savannah Park. Next up is Meadow. This is a very beautiful game with a lot of great art and a wonderful theme. You're going to be setting out these little picket fences around this board, collecting cards, and then playing them in front of you with a collection of symbols. I really like the quick-paced nature of this game. You're constantly drawing cards and playing them and trying to set up combos. The game is logical in the way it works as you're essentially making a food chain. You'll have grubs, you'll play a bird over that grub, and maybe you play a wolf over the bird. You have this clear hierarchy of the different cards, and the point values reflect that. So I think they do a good job here, and I think the theme definitely shines in this one. And next up is Lorenzo Il Magnifico. Very impressed with this game. It is an engine building game where you are going to be sending out these workers to these large columns, collecting cards, and you have a constant decision of, am I going to be building up my engine or am I going to run my engine? And I love that choice. And I think this game does it very well because there are two separate engines that you're going to be constantly working on. You have these different territories you control, and then you have these machines that are generally going to be generating you resources or victory points. So I like the fact that it's first come, first serve on getting a stronger action for that engine building. So I love that. There's a reason to run it right away, but there's also the strategy of taking your time and make sure you're building it as much as possible before you end up running it. So I love the different tension points here. I love the way the action system works, and this is one that I'm very excited to try all of the different modules and the different expansions for it. I think that the Leaders expansion that comes in the base game is amazing, having those different goals that you can go for right away to give you some really unique, interesting powers, but they're also multi-use to give you an extra advantage, maybe if you want to ignore one and go another route. And there are even cards that allow you to get more of those cards. Oh, this game is awesome. I just want to play more of this one. Next up is all the expansions for Viscounts. This is the Gates of Gold and Keeper of Keys, and I really like these expansions. They expand on the game by allowing you to collect more cards and then using those cards to trigger your strategies. It solves one of my problems with having a lot of cards that just were useless, but it still makes it so you really need to focus on a specific strategy. There are new endgame scoring cards, though, in the form of these outsiders, and I think that's really awesome because that's going to add a little bit of variance by trying to get these King's Order cards, so I do appreciate that, and they also buff the manuscripts and the buildings with this expansion as well. If you're going to get any of them, I do think that I recommend the Gates of Gold. It does buff all of the aspects of the game that I thought were a little bit lacking, but the Keeper of Keys does a really good job of adding those chests, which is going to have you being able to use cards in different ways because certain icons can turn into others. So I think there's definitely reasons to get both, but I think the strongest of the two is probably the Gates of Gold, just because it does buff the weaker versions of the victory point routes, essentially, with the manuscripts and the building carts. And next up is the Black Panther set for Legendary Marvel, and this set is awesome. It features some really cool recurring themes in the form of multicolored cards, but the newest theme it has is ambush on hero cards. This is so cool because it gives you a new reason to purchase cards on your turn, because you know that if you're playing with ambush cards, particularly King Black Panther here, if he shows up, he's going to be able to trigger some really cool ability, and that may push you over the edge into what you were trying to do. There's some great choices when it comes to the ambush effects, and I think this is definitely something that we were excited to see in Marvel Legendary, and I think that it works really well. And next up is Etherfields. All of the expansions for Etherfields came in. This is the Stretch Goals, the Sphinx campaign, the Funeral Witch, and then the Harpy campaign and the She-Wolf campaign. So all of this stuff came in, and wow, I am very impressed. So I've played about, I would say, 36 hours of the new stuff with the Harpy campaign. It's got the Riddler expansion here, so you have a new mystery path that you're going to be going down. And then the She-Wolf campaign is also here. You have 2 smaller campaigns and then 2 larger ones, and it's just more Etherfields. If you like Etherfields, excellent. They've actually done a really big overhaul on not only the rulebook, but also on the map itself, and they've done some really good changes with the slumber system, so you can implement that right away, a very easy switch. I'm very impressed with this expansion. It's awesome. Like all these changes are nothing but positive while still retaining the experience of the dream world, the slumbers, and then the dreams themselves are still creative, inventive, and fun. Loving it. Etherfields is an amazing experience. And next up we have Pictures. Yes, I really like this one. It's a game of creativity and creation as you are going to be having these materials in front of you and you must create a picture. For example, this person here has created this stop sign picture with these rocks and these sticks. I think this is hilarious, amazing. You're always playing this one. You're always going to create something interesting, and the game ends when you've used all of the components at least once, and I think this is just so much fun. I like the fact that there are multiple chips in the bag, so multiple people could be doing the same picture with the different items, and I think that is so much fun. And we got the expansion as well, Pictures Orange. It just adds new ways to create pictures using new objects, including this one here. You have this tile, do some abstract art. I think they did a really good job here with the windmill. Tell me what you think. I really enjoyed this one, actually. So very much a no-brainer. And I did just learn that they're going to be releasing a Pictures Christmas edition very soon. So that's awesome. Just more ways to interpret these pictures. I'm super excited to see where this creativity takes us. I really recommend this one at all player counts. Pictures is amazing. Next up here is Riftforce Beyond. This is the solo and cooperative version, as well as just more characters for Riftforce. And this is a no-brainer expansion if you like Riftforce. I've had a couple of opportunities now to play this one, and this just has more characters with more abilities. And then you also have the solo mode, which works really well. You're going to have a character that is pretty terrifying as it's constantly getting new characters on the board, and it is going to have this system where it is going to automatically try to take over certain areas. So very impressed with Riftforce. And lastly, this just came in today. This is the Parks Wildlife expansion. I haven't had a chance to play this one, but it is just a more expansion. You've got new trails, new wildlife, you've got new gear. It's just more of the same, which I really appreciate. So no crazy new mechanisms or anything like that. So this is just more parks if you enjoy parks. And that is all of the new games and expansions that have entered the library. We now go to all of the upgrades and additional things that entered. Starting off with the Volfyirion Dragon Miniature. This is for that deck building game that we talked about earlier. This replaces the wooden meeple in the game with a giant miniature. You can also use it as an expansion for the other games like Kaon and Mystia. It also has a small deck of cards that you can use in those games, and then rules sheet as an additional mini expansion. The big thing is those little what are they, rocks? These little rocks on the bottom here actually come out, and so I think those are integrated somehow. Haven't played with this one yet, but I have played with all of the other content in Volfyirion, and this really does elevate that presence when you are, okay, I summon the dragon. You bring the dragon out, put it on the city, and it's about to destroy it. Love it. So fun. And next up, we have the big box for Viscounts of the West Kingdom. This came with all of the other Kickstarter stuff, but the big box here I think is great because it does fit everything. We have an organizing video for it on our channel. We've made a few customizations to it. We've trimmed a little bit of it, but I think this is the best one out of the 3 boxes that the West Kingdom series has produced. So the little expansion in it is fine too. It's just more cards and more of the tiles, so I think it's worth checking out, particularly if you enjoy Viscounts and you have all the expansions for it. And next up, we have the Meadow card sleeves pack. This is just exactly what it sounds like. It's just sleeves for the game, but it also comes with a small, tiny envelope with its own set of rules. Essentially just some unique cards. They're a little bit interesting, but they do make sense if you played Meadow quite a bit, and I think it's just something to keep in mind. It's going to add a little bit of complexity. People are going to see these and be like, what does that mean? Just keep that in mind if you're deciding to implement it into your game. Then we have all of the upgraded tokens. Got this in the same shipment as the Cat in the Box Deluxe. I originally got the tokens here for WereWords. That's what this is, for WereWords. I originally got the tokens. I originally backed WereWords when I was just getting into gaming. And for some reason, I thought the Kickstarter that I bought had these deluxe tokens in it already, but they did not. So luckily, I have a chance now to pick them up. I didn't realize I could still find them. So I really like WereWords. I think it's a really excellent social deduction game in such a short time frame, combined with the 20 questions theme is excellent. So this is just plastic tokens for the game, and I think this is wonderful. It's more tactile experience. I love it. I'll take it for sure. The next 3 here are all for Keymaster. So we got the new Parks expansion in, so if you reach a certain threshold for shipping, it'd be free. Sure, why not? So we got the Parks neoprene playmat because people really like that game, and it's very pretty. So having a nice playmat, allowing you to move the cards on, excellent. We have the promo blue tents. Not sure why we got these. Super fun though. Just maybe different colors. And then lastly, we got the Caper Europe neoprene playmat. This thing is huge. Didn't realize how big it was. The tube is gigantic as well, but I really like Caper, so it's nice to have a very luxury version to play Caper on. So those are all of the things from Keymaster. And then our last upgrades here, we got the new Geek Up bag sets for Root, in particular the Marauders expansion. Now we've got the full set again, so beautiful. Looks so good. Really a big fan of Root, and particularly I really like this little murderous barbarian mouse. He is incredible. Very aggressive character. I love that he also uses items, so it gives you a new reason to go looking for them, which I really appreciate. The Keepers in Iron, though, I'm not sure if I like them that much. They are a little convoluted in the way they work, and it is very easy to foil them. It reminds me a little bit of the Irie and the Cats with how fragile they are, as opposed to something like the Moles, where the Moles have a little bit more of a bounce back. So it's interesting, not my preferred way to play. I really like the Barbarian Mice, though. Amazing characters. And lastly, our last section here, we've got all of our pre-orders. Starting off with our only Kickstarter, actually, is Dead Reckoning Letters of Marque. So Letters of Marque here is another legacy expansion for Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning is a card crafting game, and new legacy expansions here are excellent. They are easy to implement. You can play them with any character. You don't have to play a campaign or anything, which is awesome. And you just are adding new cards and new things that are going to make the game different. And I think that's awesome. This one in particular is also going to add some new upgrades to your ships and your cannons. I think the buildings in particular are going to get some new updates. You're going to have, let's see if I can find it at the bottom here. You are going to have some new, let me scroll down. Here we are. Upgraded cargo, neoprene playmat, upgraded buildings. There it is. So this is what you're getting. New buildings to replace the small little white wooden ones, a neoprene playmat, and then of course the newest expansion with the Saga 3, Letters of Marque. So this is definitely why you're getting it, is for the Letters of Marque saga. It's got some new upgrades for the ship, and then it's also got the new stuff that'll be introduced. So didn't really want to research too much into Letters of Marque, because it's obviously going to include a lot of those legacy elements, and I think those are a lot more fun when you just explore them. And the way that they're integrated here is if you include the saga, they do show up, and I really appreciate that. The first two have been really fun to travel through and see what sort of changes that they add to the game, and they add some really fun points of excitement and exploration, which I think the game really not needs, but I think it really helps the game, and it helps out that pirate theme, which I really appreciate. So that's Letters of Marque for Dead Reckoning. And then the last two pre-orders here we have are for Marvel Champions. Incredible game. This is Wolverine's Hero Pack. He is our aggression ally. He has a healing factor, which is amazing. He's got ways to take damage to play extra cards, and I think that he is just absolutely bonkers. We also have some new cards with new art from some older cards with new art, which is very cool. And then we also have some new powerhouse allies, like Psylocke here, which is kind of like a Iron Fist, but for aggression, which is amazing, because now you have some confusion in aggression, which I think is awesome. You have a way that you can flip more reliably and heal, so I love that. And of course, we have Lady Deathstrike. This is going to be our new modular encounter set. So very excited for Wolverine. I'm sure that he's going to have some powerful decks that you can play as him. I love the option of using health as a resource. That is amazing. So one of my favorite things in games like this, where you have multiple currencies and they're using those things that already exist in the game. And then the last expansion here for Marvel Champions is Mojo Mania, and this is one that I'm actually more excited for, because I just think more scenarios are always more interesting to me. You can try out new characters in the settings, and it really puts you to the test on which characters have a good time, which characters have a hard time, and Mojo Mania looks amazing. The whole theme is Mojoverse, I think is what it's called. You have this huge TV-themed planet, and Mojo is going to be taking you from place to place. You have Magog here, who's going to put you in a competition like a Coliseum, and then of course you get to the end here, and Mojo is going to bring you into all of these different themes, these genres, like the Game of Mojos, a fantasy theme, or a crime-based syndicate. So I'm curious to see what are all of the different types of television that you can be in, but encounters are ones that I don't really want to get too much information on, because I do want to experience experience it for myself. So I'm not going to get too much into learning about Mojo Mania. I'm just very excited for when it does arrive. I've been very impressed with all of the scenario design in these last 2 campaign boxes. So we've got the X-Men box coming up and then Mojo Mania right afterwards. I cannot wait. I'm so excited to see what they do with the X-Men in Marvel Champions. And those are all of the games that entered the library during the month of August 2022. If you have any questions about any of these games that I talked about here, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you think that we missed anything during the month of August, please let me know what I should be looking out for. I'm curious to hear what you think of these games just in general, and I'm curious to hear what entered your library during the month of August. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.